On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Tables are turning in a major way right now. There's a lot of effort that has been made over the many months to paint the Democrats as the victors and to heavily try to paint with a very broad brush, certainly, but paint Trump and any supporter as bad, horrible, wicked, wrong, and all these things. They've had all the budgets that they could possibly muster. They've got millions of dollars. Just look at all the Act Blue money that's coming through. They have spent gobs. They own the media. They own the newspapers. They own the press. They own everything. They have been able to bombard everybody with this common message, which is Orange Man bad. People are waking up in a major way. This poll, now again, I hate polls, and I'll say it every time a poll comes out, even when they show good stuff. But that being said, the stupid poll shows right here that this is a month old. This is before the conventions and all that nonsense. It showed a strong uptrend. The red down here is Trump. The blue over here is Biden. It's showing this downturn and then an upturn and, basically making that little fish symbol, right? What people are starting to realize is Biden's very challenged. They're also realizing that the left does not care about common people. They want to defund the cops. They're supporting the violence and the danger that's occurring in cities right now. I mean, I think literally today or yesterday was the first day that someone finally said, the violence has to stop. And I've got Biden with his little 17-second snippet. Got that coming up. But everything that everybody is starting to witness and see represents a reality that most people don't want, which is a destroyed business front, people running through neighborhoods and throwing firebombs at houses and apartments and just all this violence. People literally shooting each other in the streets. This is what's common now. And on top of all that, we've got this COVID thing that's got all sorts of questions around whether that data is right. But the fact of the matter is, you lock down a society long enough, people start to get a little antsy. So we've got a lot of concerns around how things are playing out. And frankly, I believe it's pretty obvious now. People are speaking up. People are saying enough is enough. And the votes are showing it. And not just that, but the politicians on the left, the powers that were, realize they have no chance of winning this election. They have no chance of taking power back. No chance. The number of people right now that are looking at what they're doing critically, that are looking at how Biden talks critically, that are looking at these practices and policies of these left-leaning mayors and governors right now, the ones that won't even let the National Guard come in because it would mean they would have to actually ask Trump for help, and they refuse to do that. Those same leaders who say that Trump is divisive are dividing themselves from Trump. Trump's like, hey, here's an olive branch. I'm happy to help. And they're like, no. Really? And you say Trump's the problem? No. And that's what people are starting to wake up to. They're realizing that these politicians are the problem. So yeah, the tables are starting to turn. Now this graph, again, is about a month ago. This, 74% of Republicans. Let's just start at the top. This Pew Research Center poll, it's already a month old. And a lot has obviously happened since then. It was talking about violent crime as a major issue, according to 59% of voters. 59% of voters a month ago were concerned about violent crime. Now, as we've seen Wisconsin spill over and become even worse, obviously that's changing. And some of the newer polls that are starting to come out, this new one that came out by Zogby, the approval rating among minorities is solid. And in this case, I guess the African Americans, shockingly high. Zogby said 36% of blacks approve of the president. 36%. They've been trying to say 10% for a while now. 36% of African Americans currently are approving of the job he's doing, as do 37% of Hispanics and 35% of Asians. So things are changing a lot. And again, think of all the news and all the different media companies and organizations that do nothing but badmouth Trump and basically spout their lies about how everything's okay, nothing to see here, this is a peaceful protest while we've got burning buildings behind us, expecting us all to believe this nonsense. With all of their efforts, with all of their assets exposed, people are waking up. What's really funny here, this Rasmussen reports, last night, I guess Don Lemon called for the rioting to end because it's showing up in polling. Don Lemon's worried about the rioting not because people are losing their homes, their lives, their health, and any other number of things, but because it's hurting the Democrats. Duh. But you've been supporting it, Don. You've been calling it peaceful. These peaceful protests. Well, apparently that's not working so well, is it? So he's like, what polling? The media polling after the Democratic National Convention was never released. And so, basically they're not seeing the bump that they wanted, but they've got this cool little picture in here. And if you can tell, these are like, I think that's Hillary and that's Pelosi, obviously. Some of these guys I can tell who's who. That's Pocahontas. That's obviously the mayor of Chicago. But it says, we want to do to America what we've done to Portland, Seattle, Chicago, New York City, and LA. Me too. And this is a great cartoon that basically, I think, shows what a lot of people are starting to feel. And it's going to be time to vote here soon. And again, it's going to be too late for these guys. So yeah, this Rasmussen report's turning out really well. Now, again, one thing I think is finally, we've been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks. Bill Barr called it out, 2 weeks ago, that no Democrats were coming out and actually basically saying, stop the violence. Finally, Joe Biden did, albeit very shortly, but here it goes.
But burning down communities is not protest, it's needless violence. Violence that endangers lives, violence that guts businesses and shutters businesses that serve the community. That's wrong.
What's your reaction, Gloria?
Well,
thanks, Biden. Thanks, Biden, for letting me know that that's wrong. Finally. But that's as good as we get, I guess, right? That's your leader that you're hoping to vote into office. That's it? That's what we get? The violence is wrong. Jesus, really? Oh, it's unreal to me. Now, here's another people that are talking about how all this violence, all this rioting, or what do you call it? Peaceful protesting like they do, that somehow this is causing a lot of people to change their minds about Biden. They're changing their minds about Democrats. They're changing their minds about what direction the future should go. They're changing their minds about how they feel about President Trump. Let's listen to this guy.
In Kenosha County, where the president won by fewer than 250 votes in 2016, those who already supported Trump told the New York Times in interviews that the events of the past few days have simply reinforced their conviction that he is the man for the job. But some voters who were less sure of their choice said the chaos in their city and the inability of elected leaders to stop it were currently nudging them toward the Republicans. Meanwhile, some Democrats told the Times they were nervous about condemning the looting because they said they understood where the anger was coming from, but said they were worried that what was happening in their city might backfire and aid the president's re-election prospects.
Mika, when we think about folks who are looking at what's happening in Kenosha and what's happened in Portland and the like, and saying that this is driving them to the Republicans, for me, they're just using that as an excuse to vote for Donald Trump. They already wanted to. Because it seems to me that it doesn't follow, at least to my mind, that what we're witnessing should drive you to someone who's threatening the very foundation of democracy.
I love how they say it's like threatening the very foundation of democracy, but ultimately it's the Democrat-led communities that currently are burning down, that currently people are being shot in the streets. So again, I love how they always say that Donald Trump's the one that's trying to do everything wrong. People are seeing through it. His retarded comment is the same thing. It's the same thing. He's just trying to say, no, everything, I can't believe because Trump's so horrible. That's all we talk about is how bad Trump is. How come people don't seem to get it? Because you guys are lying. You're fake news. We keep seeing it. You guys keep saying one thing and then like a day later, we see the rest of the video and we're like, what? So many times that the mainstream media has just been wrong or misrepresented the facts frequently. And that's probably the nicest way I can state it. Nancy Pelosi here is talking about how she wanted to give Joe Biden some advice. She thought this might help him out, and I'm sure it would, though he did make a comment earlier today that he's not going to follow her advice. But let's see what her advice was to Joe.
Myself, just don't tell anybody I told you this. Especially don't tell Joe Biden. I don't think that there should be any debates. I do not think that the President of the United States has comported himself in a way that anybody should, and that has any association with truth, evidence, data, and facts. I wouldn't legitimize a conversation with him.
So again, more great advice from the Speaker of the House, that they're not divisive at all. I mean, just their sheer hatred of Trump and he obviously doesn't like her either. And I can't imagine why. They only tried to impeach and she did her thing and tore up the thing. So much. And the little pens that look like bullets. There's so many crazy things that have happened with this wonderful lady. Anyway, so one other thing that's kind of funny about this whole thing is Democrats essentially are trying to concede the election. They've basically accepted the fact that no debates should happen. Obviously, they're talking about how I think Hillary Clinton was saying that Joe Biden shouldn't concede, which means they already know that the election's going to go the way it's going to go, and they're already planning on log jamming this. That is their whole plan, is to try to shut down our governmental flow. This is their final push. This is it, because frankly, if they don't pull this off, they are done. And that's really what's going to end up happening here. So a lot of these people are running out of time, and it's on the wall. The writing's on the wall, and people are starting to wake up to it. So we've got a cool little interview here that Pelosi does with ABC. I think I've got it pulled up here. Yeah, it's a little better. It's a little bit long. And one thing I want to call out, she's talking about the relief bill and how if the right's not going to meet her in the middle, then forget it, talks are off. But ultimately, a lot of money, and she talks about where she wants to put it. Now, she tries to put it in more PC terms, but ultimately, it's to fund a lot of state workers. These states that have major budget issues, these states that have chosen to shut down their economies, these states that have been mismanaged for years prior to COVID, that's what she's trying to get money for. And she's basically saying, hey, I'm not going to do anything if you don't give me what I'm asking for. And I'm almost 100% sure there's no way in heck that she's going to get what she's asking for. The other thing I got to call out, what is up with her and Biden specifically? Biden can't talk. He can't string together enough words to make up a sentence. She does the same thing and then stalls for like a day and a half in between words. Sometimes you're like, what is wrong with, it's the Kool-Aid, I think, that they drink. And that's how they come up with these crazy ideas. And I think it messes up their minds too. Something strange is going on. Anyway, let's see what she's got to say.
Yes, ma'am.
Speaker Pelosi, you're going to speak with Mark Meadows today. Did he agree to come up $1 trillion in order to have this conversation?
No, it's not let me be really clear. If you watch this convention and you hear people say, oh, they don't have it, we have to have truth monitor, we have to do this and that because they're not telling the truth. That's the atmosphere in which he springs from. So when he comes to all of you and says, well, we're trying this and we're trying that, they're not trying anything. Okay? We have said to them, we're willing to meet you in the middle. That we think what we have in our bill, and our chairman and I speak to them regularly, are committed to what we have in the bill to meet the public's needs. That's not what they are about. Understand that. So this is a conversation only to respect the fact that the president's representative, not even the lead negotiator, that would be Mnuchin. We consider whatever his name is, what's his name? Meadows there is staffing Mr. Mnuchin. And they if they are willing to meet us in the middle, then we can sit down and talk. So this is, you called me, I'm returning your call. Are you ready to bring much more money to the table to honor our heroes, our state and local workers, our healthcare workers, our first responders, our teachers, our sanitation, transportation, healthcare workers? That could be a very short conversation if they're not ready to meet in the middle, if they're not. And so it isn't, that should be very short. Hopefully it isn't. Hopefully they understand that if we're going to destroy this virus, we have to have sufficient funds to do so in terms of testing, tracing, and treating. That unless we support state and local government, millions more people will be unemployed. Millions. Over 1.5, close to 2 million have lost their jobs already because of the cost that they have, the outlays they've had to make because of the coronavirus, as well as revenue that they have lost. And now people are losing their jobs, and many more will unless we address the state and local. And again, in terms of so many other aspects of the legislation, as I said earlier, the most important thing right now, kids are going back to school one way or another. We must keep them safe. We must not say, as the Secretary of the Treasury has said, children should take risk. People do, astronauts do, learn to ride a bike, you do. No, this is taking a risk with your life, your good health, and what you could bring home to others who may be more susceptible. We do not have shared values. That's why it's very hard to come to an agreement on this. I check in with my chairman, and they say, I know you have to come down, but understand our number is a defensible, scientific, institutionally based justification for what the public needs, whether it's about schools and the rest, or people being evicted, or millions of children hungry in our country and the rest. So, no, just to answer your question, are you willing to meet in the middle? If so, we can have a conversation. If not, I've returned your call.
Is it not amazing how they try to spin this? Again, they tried to spin it. They tried to bring up kids. They tried to bring up how there's millions of jobs at stake. And really, again, it comes down to mismanaged states. States with bloated budgets, the highest taxed states in the union are some of the ones that are having the biggest problems. Again, these states don't know how to manage money. The last thing you should do is give them another pile of money. I think ultimately they've got to learn how to keep their budgets under control, as they tell us to do, to live within our means. And people are starting to wake up to the nonsense that is being spewed by the left. People are also realizing that what they're asking for is an astronomical amount of money. And again, that's on the taxpayers. So once again, on top of already living in California and paying some of the highest taxes in the nation, now I'm going to have an enhanced debt added to me to help pay for my state that can't manage its own funds. So more taxpayer money goes to a place that's already bleeding money. No, the state's got to learn how to manage. It's got to learn how to get by. And frankly, if they've got to fire a bunch of important workers, then I think something else is wrong altogether. They're mismanaging from so many different levels that something's wrong. And if you really look at it, like a lot of the utilities and stuff like that, these are paid by individual local taxes and or bills. Again, a lot of the stuff they're talking about is ridiculous. And so they're going deep. People are waking up. The Democrats are losing control. They're losing the argument. They're losing everything. And it's starting to freak them out. They are truly, truly, truly panicking. A lot of crazy stuff going on in the world these days. Now, one last thing I want to share. I thought it was something to keep in mind. A lot of these people talk about these Teslas and their autopilots. Well, dude was watching a movie while his autopilot was driving its car, and he slammed into a parked police cruiser. Bam. Wasn't paying attention. Wasn't legally driving. And he got a ticket for not getting into the other lane, because a lot of times police have rules where if they're in on the side of the road, you have to try to get over a lane if you can. And he apparently didn't, and then just obviously slammed into the car. So yeah, not looking good for the driver of the Tesla. So again, one of those things, if you got the autopilot, be careful. You still need to pay attention. I don't care what you think or how much you want to trust this thing. Your life and other people's lives are at risk if you're not at least sort of paying attention. Hopefully people can do more of that. And again, paying attention to what's going on in the economy, the world, the government, the conventions, just all the nonsense. Pay attention. It's happening. You guys are seeing it happen. They're starting to panic. They're now coming out and talking about how the violence is bad. Finally, only been, rioting for 82 days in Portland now? Finally, they came out and said, ooh, violence bad. Ooh, thank you, Joe Biden. I appreciate that. Finally coming to the table 80 days late. Too late, buddy. And that's what people are realizing. Where we go one, we go all. It's on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.